Summit League Baseball Championship, live from Fargo. May 24th through the 27th. See the top 4 teams battle for the Summit League title. Only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus. 2 games start at noon and 6 p.m., both Wednesday and Thursday. 1 game at 4 on Friday. Then the championship coverage begins Saturday at 1. Watch the 2023 Summit League Baseball Championship, only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus.
You took my father. Somebody's going to pay for this.
There's no story more surprising than a real-life Dateline mystery.
Probably a pretty ugly crime scene.
Follow every twist and turn 5 times a week.
The chase is on.
With Dateline.
Weekdays at 1 p.m. You're watching WDAY Extra. Hot Mike with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mike.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Thursday morning. Welcome to Hot Mike, back live on location at Newman Outdoor Field on this Thursday morning, bright and blue. It is breezy. It's going to be warm today. Perfect day for baseball on this 25th day of May as we near the Memorial Day weekend. A lot of people have their final day of work or they're out for the weekend. The rest of us are slugging through it, but there could be a lot of worse places we could be at than a baseball diamond, which we will be again today for another long day as 2 more games on tap here at the Summit League Tournament after a busy day yesterday. Morning, everybody. I am Dom Izzo, host of said show. Welcome to Hot Mike on this Thursday. After a busy day yesterday here at the Diamond that saw Oral Roberts and South Dakota State each win on the opening day of the tournament. Disappointing day for Bison baseball as they got blown out last night, frankly, by South Dakota State. They did not play well in the field, didn't play well on the base pass. We'll show you that here in just a few minutes as the Jackrabbits took advantage and they are in the winner's bracket. We'll play tonight. The Bison will come back here this afternoon at noon. They'll be an hour after we wrap up our show in a winner-take-all game as they'll take on Omaha. The winner will have its season continue. The loser has its season ended. So our field will be trimmed from 4 to 3. The winner of that first game will play tomorrow in the only game. We have 1 game tomorrow, elimination game at 4 o'clock here at Newman Outdoor Field. And then championship Saturday. The winner of the night game gets the automatic berth into the championship game. So we'll have plenty to discuss on that coming up here over our next little bit. I will say this, they had a pretty good environment here last night for that Jacks Bison game. The crowd was filled in. It was a beautiful night for baseball. The wind was blowing a little bit, but it is Fargo. What else do you expect for that? And had a good vibe here. And SDSU played well. They got right off the hop and took advantage on Cade Feeney, which is I do not think any Bison fan nor Tyler Oakes, the head coach of the team, thought that could happen. They had saved Feeney specifically to go last night, and SDSU did not miss on that. It is also a big day for you college football nerds out there. Today marks 100 days. 100 today from the start of the new season. September 2nd is 100 days from today, of course, for North Dakota State. That means a game at U.S. Bank Stadium against Eastern Washington. We're going to chat some college football today. The head football coach, Matt Entz, will actually stop by coming up in our second hour to chat some college football and how the offseason has gone and getting ready for the season opener coming up on September the 2nd. So we'll dive into that coming up in just a little bit. If you missed the games yesterday, if you saw them, we'll recap them anyway. We'll begin with the first game, Oral Roberts, Omaha, here yesterday at Newman Outdoor Field, where the Golden Eagles came in, the longest winning streak in the country, won 15 consecutive games, and they looked all the part yesterday. Their starting pitcher, Harley Gollert, was fantastic on the mound as he was dealing the entire game yesterday. Went 7 innings, struck out 7 guys, allowed 7 hits and just 2 runs. And the ORU Bats, which produced no hits in the first inning, and yet the Golden Eagles still played at 2 runs. Woke up as the game went along. Summit League Player of the Year Jonah Cox continued his hitting streak, got to 39 games. He's now tied for the 12th longest streak in the history of the NCAA with an RBI single yesterday. They had other contributors as well. Everybody outside of one, 8 of the 9 hitters had a hit in the game yesterday for ORU. Eddie Satisky for Omaha bashed 2 home runs in the game, which we thought might be the best performance of the day. That was only topped by what Nick Nelson from South Dakota State did last night. But ORU improves to 23-0 in the winners bracket games as they won 9-2 yesterday over the Mavericks and send them into the winners bracket. We'll see them coming up here later tonight. That is a awfully impressive team. We thought from the get-go they were going to be a really tough team to beat, and they looked all that and more so yesterday afternoon. And we'll see them back here at 6 o'clock tonight for Game 2 as they'll match up with South Dakota State. And as I mentioned that, Reese Arbogast got the start yesterday for the Jackrabbits, the left-hander. We did not see him in the series last week as Rob Bishop, head coach of the Jacks, had saved him. And all the attention on Feeney, first-team All-Summit League pitcher, and rightfully so, and Arbogast was the guy that stole the show. On top of that, the Jacks bats stole the show last night. And remarkably, as NDSU pounded out 14 hits of their own and can only muster 4 runs. They left 9 on base. They committed 5 errors in the game. And the hero of the night is Nick Nelson, who tied the Summit League tournament record for home runs in a game and RBIs in the game. We'll show you what he did because it started right away in the top of the first inning. He had a laser beam home run that hit the top of the fence and went over for a 2-run shot. That gave SDSU a 2-0 lead, and they would not look back after that, as they got to Cade Feeney early and often in this game, so much so that Feeney only lasted 4 innings for the Bison yesterday. Not what you were hoping for if you're Tyler Oaks. You're hoping your starter can get you well into this game. That was not the case yesterday. In fact, the Bison had to use 4 separate pitchers. Wyatt Nelson pitched, Ryan Endress, and Noah Rosenbaum came in and pitched 2 innings in relief. But the Jacks just kept adding on this game. The Bison did creep into it. They made it 9-4 after scoring 4 runs in the bottom of the 5th inning. And we're going to show you here in a second how they ran themselves out of this game in the 6th, even after SDSU added 2 in the top half of the inning to make it an 11-4 game. After that, SDSU benefited from some bad Bison base running. Try to say that 3 times fast. And then they exploded for 6 more runs in the top half of the 7th and cruised to a 17-4 win over North Dakota State to send the Bison now into the losers bracket, and they're going to have some work to do today. Tristan Roehrich will get the start. We're going to hear from him coming up later on in our show. The Pride of West Fargo is going to have to try and keep the Bison season alive, and for the 2nd year in a row, NDSU loses in the opening round game. Last year, of course, was the top seed. They got beat by Omaha. They ended up winning that game against SDSU last year to keep its season going. And now they got to take the long road to get to Saturday because they know they're going to have to play on Friday. And if they want to win this thing, they got to play 2 games on Saturday. So it is definitely the long road to go here for North Dakota State. This is our updated bracket and what you're going to see coming up here later today. Of course, all the games you'll see live right here on WDAY Extra. First game up will be that Omaha North Dakota State game coming up at 12:05 here at Newman Outdoor Field. As the Mavericks and Bison just played here at Newman a couple weeks ago. It was supposed to be a 3-game set. It was reduced to 2 because of the weather, as they had rain throughout that weekend. They couldn't play Friday, couldn't play Saturday, and they ended up playing a doubleheader on Sunday. Bison won the first game. Omaha got the second. So they just played, so we'll see how that goes. Tristan Roehrich, I mentioned, going for the Bison in that first game. Then tonight at 6:05, winners bracket game, Oral Roberts and South Dakota State. Winner moves on to the championship game at automatic berth. They will not have to play tomorrow, and they will play on Saturday at 1. Whoever wins that game coming up tonight, all they have to do is win once on Saturday, and they are going to the NCAA tournament. Just for everybody's knowledge today, the Bison will be the visiting team today. Omaha will be the home team, and then tonight, Oral Roberts will be the visitors, and South Dakota State will be the home team. That's how that will work out for tonight's games. So, again, we'll have coverage of everything coming up tonight on WDAY Extra, Inforum.com, Sioux Falls Live, KSFL, all that good stuff. You can find it. Summit League website as well. We'll be streaming the games coming up. So excited about that. Now, we got to show you what happened in the 6th inning last night. We mentioned it's 11-4 South Dakota State, and the Bison have a potential rally put together. We got to play the tape here. We'll go from it and try to explain this as best we can as NDSU literally ran themselves out of an inning. It's 11-4 score in the bottom of the 6th inning. This is where havoc happens here because they get Jack Stile a walk. Stephen Lund hits a double to right, but then Stile got the hold-up sign at third, which you're going to do because there's nobody out, and then he gets caught in a rundown, and then Lund, I don't know what happened there, if he was not paying attention or asleep at the wheel, he gets tagged out, and just like that, the Bison go from 2 on and nobody out to 2 outs and nobody on. Again, look at it here. Beasley makes a good play to get this in from right field. But that's when the chaos happened. Dawson Perry, the first baseman, realizes, well, okay, we've got Lund hung out to dry, and Stile is in between second and third. I was watching on the play. I could see that Stile was getting held up early, but you could see this is the key part. Lund is not looking at the third base coach at all. And finally, when he finally picks it up, he stumbles, and then everything is lost at that point. And granted, you don't know what's going to happen and how the game is going to play out from there, but honestly, the Bison had some momentum going there. There was nobody out. They were tattooing Brady Hawkins, the South Dakota State reliever, at that particular point of the game. And after that, the bats went silent. The Bison did not score for the rest of the game, and the Jacks took advantage after that. So that kind of play can doom you, especially when you're trying to make a rally like that. Add on top of the fact, as I mentioned, they kicked the ball around last night. They ended up committing 5 errors in the game. They left 10 men on base. That's an easy way to end up losing the ball game. One correction, they had 13 hits, not 14. The Jacks had 14 hits. The Bison nearly tied them in hits, and yet SDSU won by 13 runs. Such is baseball and how that played out here last night. So it's winner or go home now for the Bison, and we'll see what happens coming up this afternoon. Noon first pitch, or noon we hit the air, 12:05 first pitch for our coverage coming up here on WDAY Extra. Real quick before we wrap up our opening segment, get set up for our show here on this Thursday. We have one finalist now for the Stanley Cup. Last night, the Florida Panthers playing in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Carolina Hurricanes. The Panthers had come in, as we mentioned, won up 3-0. They had only lost 1 game since falling behind 3-1 to the Boston Bruins. Playing at home last night, Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel was there to blast on the drum, which is a customary deal. They were already up 1-0 when Matthew Tkachuk scores on a power play goal midway through the period. It's a 2-0 lead. Carolina, though, would answer down 3-2. Jesper Foss scores here with 3.5 minutes to go, and Carolina's tied it up. You see the Prince of Wales trophy on hand here as they were ready to start celebrating. There's the Foss goal from Carolina to knot this game up at 3. I don't know how he scored there. No angle to score down low. Now, craziness ensues here because under a minute to go, penalty going to be called here, a tripping call against the Hurricanes. You can see Jordan Stahl called there for the trip, and Florida would take advantage. Look at this, with just 5 seconds remaining. Matthew Tkachuk scores the go-ahead goal. Rod Brindamore, the head coach of the Hurricanes, thought there was a penalty here, or should have been goalie interference called. If anything, it's a tic-tac play. Tkachuk, who's just been amazing this entire playoffs. Right now, he's the Conn Smythe winner. If not him, it's Sergei Bobrovsky, the Panthers goaltender. It's a good goal, and that sends Florida to the Stanley Cup final. They beat Carolina 4-3, win the series 4-0. Of course, everybody wanted to know when the game was done, would they touch the trophy? That's the age-old jinx, as it were, in hockey. If you were to touch it, they did. They embraced it there after the game, and right now, all the good vibes are going Carolina or Florida's way, as they move on and will play for the Stanley Cup. Beginning next week, they'll have at least a few days off because we don't know if Vegas and Dallas will end tonight. Remember, Las Vegas is up in that series 3-0. They go for the sweep of their own. So you literally could have Las Vegas and Miami. The Palm Tree Stanley Cup is coming your way next week. Amazing to see that. Real quick, just at the end of the regular season, and we mentioned this as we were following how the end of the season was going to go. If the Pittsburgh Penguins don't lose to the Blackhawks on the next to last day of the season, the Panthers aren't even in the tournament. They wouldn't even made it. If the Penguins don't lose to a Blackhawks team that was openly tanking, and you saw Chicago end up winning the lottery, they got the #1 pick for the NHL draft this upcoming summer. If that happens, we're not even talking about the Florida Panthers. Instead, they get in. Then they beat the best team in the history of hockey in the regular season after being down 3-1 to Boston. And the Bruins had not lost 3 games all season in a row. They did that. Then they knock off Toronto in 5, and they sweep out Carolina, which the Hurricanes were the #2 overall seed in the Eastern Conference. It's remarkable. It's one of those things that happens in hockey every so often where a team will just get crazy, stupid hot. Minnesota Wild fans remember that happened in 2003. It took the Wild all the way to the conference final. It happened to the Mighty Ducks that year. Anaheim got crazy and went all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final that year in 2003. The Panthers are riding that. First time they're in the Stanley Cup final since 1996. John Van Beesbrook was the goaltender way back then for the Panthers. They lost in triple overtime. Is the Colorado, the Avalanche. Michael Jeff's going to go crazy. They swept them that year 4-0 back in 1996. So congratulations to them. We'll see if we have a Stanley Cup final set later tonight. NBA finals could be set also later tonight as Miami goes to Boston. Now, remember, the Celtics won in Game 4 on Tuesday. They'll try to get it back to Miami for a Game 6. They're back home. The Heat lead that series 3-1. Fun show coming up for you here on this Thursday morning. Again, we're live on location at Newman Outdoor Field. Bryan Miller will join us at 9:35. Summit League Assistant Commissioner. He's the guy running everything, the tournament manager up here. We'll ask him what goes into this. I know he's been checking his weather app, I think, nonstop since last week, and obviously it's worked out great considering we got a full day in yesterday. It looks like we're going to get everything in today. In fact, it doesn't look like any rain in the forecast for the next couple days. So we'll visit with Bryan coming up at 9:35. I had mentioned Matt Entz, North Dakota State head football coach, will join us here at 10 o'clock as we are 100 days out from the kickoff of the 2023 Bison football season that'll begin at U.S. Bank Stadium, the home of the Minnesota Vikings, as they'll take on Eastern Washington. He'll join us at 10. And at 10:35, today's starting pitcher for the Bison, Tristan Roehrich, will join us. He's got a big challenge in front of him as he's got to will his team into tomorrow. Pride of West Fargo. He's seeing one of his best friends, Ryan Barassa, pitch at South Dakota State. We visit with him about that as well. You'll hear from Tristan coming up at 10:35. That and a heck of a lot more here on a busy Thursday morning. Let's take a break. We come back. We got some Grant Nelson NBA draft news to discuss as that gets even more enticing. As we sit here today, we are now 6 days away from the deadline if he's either going to stay in the draft or head back to school. We'll discuss that and much more as Hot Mike continues on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV, Inforum.com, and Sioux Falls Live. We're back to Newman right after this.
Together we are powerful. I really believe that in my spirit and in my heart.
We've been working on this since the ancient times.
Then you should be all right.
Oh, you're crying.
I'm underneath a microscope all the time. You deserve to be loved and respected.
Weekdays at 2 p.m.
Together we are powerful. I really believe that in my spirit and in my heart.
We've been working on this since the ancient times.
Then you should be all right.
Oh, you're crying.
I'm underneath a microscope all the time. You deserve to be loved and respected.
Weekdays at 2 p.m.
In this job, you take your eye off it for 1 second. People can die.
Don't think, just do it.
I'm a firefighter, and I will always be a firefighter.
Did a great thing today.
It's all because of you.
Weekdays at 7 p.m. and 12:05 a.m.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in North Dakota. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the NDHSAA.
News happens at all hours of the day and night.
Stories develop and situations change in the blink of an eye.
In our community, knowing where you can turn at any time of the day
for clear information and facts
is more important today than at any other time.
That's why we start our day
in the middle of the night
to gather new information
and be ready to bring it to you.
Tracking what has changed overnight and how that will impact your day today.
We're here for you with the most up-to-date news and weather
to get you on your way.
Because your community
is our community.
Insanity.
911, what's your emergency?
Today, 1 in 5 working-age Americans has a mental health condition.
People in all types of jobs and at all levels.
And the key to helping us succeed is a supportive and inclusive workplace.
All of us have a role to play in making that happen.
So what can I do to help?
As a CEO, I can set the tone for supportive culture.
As a manager, I can offer assistance and accommodations.
As a coworker, I can listen and be a source of support to my colleagues.
As someone with a mental health condition, I can ask for what I need to perform my best.
I can offer all employees the supports they need to deliver on the job. For the team
and for the business.
What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?
I can remind others
that we all benefit from workplaces that promote good mental health.
Mental health-friendly workplaces are more important than ever.
And all of us have a role to play in promoting them.
Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
There are places, people, and conditions in this world that almost seem beyond hope. But not when Mercy Ships is there. Mercy Ships is a place restoring sight to the blind, happiness to the outcast, and joy to the brokenhearted. Mercy Ships is the reason why hope is now in sight. To learn more, go to mercyships.org.
Don't forget, we continue the Summit League Baseball Tournament coverage later today. After Hot Mic wraps, we're back at noon for an elimination game. Omaha and Nebraska and NDSU, and then followed up by South Dakota State and Oral Roberts tonight at 6. You can see all the tournament coverage here on WDAY Extra, KSFL, Inforum.com, and Sioux Falls Live. Again, a reminder, here's our matchups coming up today with the Bison and Omaha at noon, and Oral Roberts and South Dakota State at 6 o'clock. The winner of that night game gets an automatic berth into the Summit League Tournament Championship. Of course, the winner of the tournament gets the automatic berth to the NCAA Tournament. Selection Monday. The show is at 11 a.m. on Monday morning on ESPN2. That'll unveil the field of 64. I was watching a couple of late games last night. The SEC baseball tournament going on. The Big 12 baseball tournament going on. I was mentioning this yesterday with Mike Scogan when he joined us, my partner on the broadcast this week. The proliferation of seeing how much college baseball is on TV from 5 years ago to now is night and day. I mean, the only time you'd see college baseball on TV, frankly, is when you got to the NCAA tournament. Now, all the Power 5 tournaments are televised. The Big Ten tournament clearly going on in Omaha at the site of the College World Series as well. It is completely different than I was. I know all those networks need programming. I say that is one that we fill 2 hours a day. But that's impressive stuff to see the sport on that much. Real quick before we give you the Grant Nelson update, speaking of another professional, Fargo's Tom Hoagie back on the golf course today as the opening round of the Charles Schwab Challenge going on at Colonial Country Club, which is literally next door to where Hoagie lives. Good start, by the way. He's 2 under par through his first 3 holes. He birdied the 10th, birdied the 11th. He's starting on the back 9 today, so we'll keep tabs on Hoagie after I would say, a middling finish last week at the PGA Championship. This is one he really wants to play in. He did not make the cut last year at this event. It was part of that midseason swoon that Hoagie won on. Currently, right now, he is 34th in the FedEx Cup standings. Now, remind you, he's had a couple of top 3 finishes, no wins. A win would certainly cement him into the top 30, that he'd be back at the Tour Championship again later this summer. That's where he's got to get to. Again, another top 5. He's probably good that he's going to be in the Tour Championship again, which is that we mentioned that locks you in. He's exempt. He's all that good stuff. We talked about that at the end of last season, but that's where everyone wants to get to. And, of course, beyond that this year, it's a Ryder Cup year. He wants to play well to see he can show off and play in the biggest stage in the sport, which is the Ryder Cup. Coming up this fall. So we'll update his round as our show goes on this morning. I teased this early in the show and wanted to make sure we circle back to it as we continue to follow this after last week with former Bison standout Grant Nelson competing at the NBA Combine in Chicago. On Tuesday, he held a pro day. His agency held a pro day with the other basketball players are going to be represented by the agency that Grant is being represented by. Over 200 scouts, executives were there from the NBA. I had this from 2 separate sources telling me this on how things went on Tuesday. Pro Day went very well by all reports. The Nuggets are flying him out for a workout tomorrow. Remember, Denver interviewed him in Chicago. They got a couple days off, apparently, because they don't have to worry about playing anybody since they swept out the Lakers. But they're going to fly Nelson out for a workout tomorrow. Also in this whole process, they're still, and I say this there, the Nelson team is also trying to basically whittle down the amount of suitors that potentially he could end up transferring to if he decides to opt out of the NBA draft process and return to school. I've been told that's still a plan B. That is not a firm decision on that. But they have at least ready to move forward if that's the place. But for everything I've been told, this is still a really tough decision. I think the workout tomorrow may go a long ways. I know we talked about this with Mike McFeely on Tuesday back in studio on how the scrimmages went in Chicago. That was going to be maybe the end-all, be-all, and maybe that didn't play out exactly like this. I think the individual workouts can go a long way towards that. But he's going to work out with the Nuggets tomorrow and then go from there. So this continues to get infinitely more interesting as the days go by. And again, a reminder for everybody, May 31 at 11:59 Central Time is when the deadline is, or 10:59 Central Time is when the deadline is to either stay in the draft or pull your name out. And as I sit here on May 25th at 9:26 a.m., I'm still on the boat that he's keeping his name in this. I just don't see that he's going to return back to school, whether that is a Power 5 school, because I don't think we're going to see him playing basketball back here. And then that's the added part of this that shouldn't go underreported or not spoken about, that if he ends up staying in, then, and if he does get drafted, they're going to say Grant Nelson, North Dakota State. That goes a long way. There's a lot to that if that ends up being the case, that if he ends up transferring and then enters the draft process, they're going to say the school that he last played for, whether it be Kansas, Kentucky, Gonzaga, Arkansas, you name it. That could be, and I say those schools specifically because all of those are in. Those are, and I don't say that lightly, folks. Kansas, Kentucky, Gonzaga, Arkansas, those are legit. Those are not made up rumor, just picking something out of the sky and saying it. They are all interested. Now, from what sources have told me, that his management team has whittled it down from was about 30 schools down to about 5 that he'd be willing to look at if he decides to head back to school. And that will be a whole different deal, because for people that remember this story, when he was coming through his junior of high school, NDSU was the first to offer, and he committed shortly after that. He never went through the whole recruiting process that we talk about all the time, the onslaught of direct messages and texts and calls and all that. He didn't do any of that through the high school process. NDSU was the first offer, and he committed about a week later. That's all the recruiting process that he went through. It will be very, very different if he decides to return to college and enter the transfer portal. It's going to be night and day on that. So be interested to see how this plays out. But again, we're in the week window now of whether he's going to stay or whether he's going to return to school, and it's going to be one of the, if it ends whatever it ends up happening, it's going to be one of the bigger sports stories here in a long time. Clearly, if he ends up staying in the draft process, it is a major, major deal that's going to take place here. And the draft is quickly approaching. End of June. June 22nd is the NBA draft in Brooklyn, and then things are going to get light speed around here. I don't know if it's going to get to the attention level that we had in Hankinson last month for Cody Mauck in the NFL draft, but it could get crazy in Devil's Lake if that ends up being the case. And around here, I think for basketball fans around here, this could be a story that we haven't seen the likes of in 30, 35, 40 years. So yeah, it's intriguing to see. And the whole draft process is such a different experience than what the NFL one is, because once you are either you declare for the draft or you're eligible, there's no going back. That's what's so different about this, that you'll see guys that are in the draft process, and the stories have already come leaking out here over the last week that the feedback has come in from the combine. This guy's going to stay in, this guy's going to go. That is such a different deal than what we're normally experienced in the NFL than what goes on with the NBA draft. But again, Nelson will get a workout with the Denver Nuggets coming up tomorrow, and he's whittled it down to about 5 schools if he decides to enter the NCAA transfer portal, if he declines to stay in the NBA draft. That, next week, going to be one of the major stories we're following on this show. We'll take a break. We come back. Bryan Miller from the Summit League will join us about putting on a baseball tournament here in Fargo, North Dakota, and dealing with all sorts of weather, 4 separate teams, and all that kind of good stuff. Hot Mic continues after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV in Sioux Falls, and Inforum.com. We're back right after this.
ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, is a debilitating disease that affects more than 20,000 Americans. Take part in the Fargo-Moorhead Walk to Defeat ALS on Saturday, June 3rd at Urban Plains Park. You can even walk your way, wherever you are. Proceeds benefit the ALS Association, which provides care and support while researching treatments that can help lead to a cure. For more information and to register, visit walktodefeatals.org.
Road trip? Road trip. Summer's here. Time for a road trip.
Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfill. For my darling, I love you, and I always will.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms.
Thank you.
Good.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
I'm Tyne Morgan, host of U.S. Farm Report. Join me right here each weekend as we explore the news and issues that matter most to agriculture. We know each year farmers and ranchers are thrown challenges, but as agriculture continues to adapt, we are right there with you. From markets to weather, we take a deep dive into what matters most to agriculture and rural America.
Saturdays at 6 a.m.
We got
lots of money over here.
I want to go for it.
So do I. Let's do it.
You bet your life.
Give me the money. $5,000.
Boosting the economy.
You seriously asking me this question, Jay? Coney Island. What are we doing over here?
Every weekday.
Kev, give me that money. Oh, yeah. I'm going to give it to you like an Italian uncle. Here you go. You get yourself a little something there. There you go. Right there.
Weekdays at 3:30 p.m.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's. The truth is, Parkinson's disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them. Worldwide, over 10 million people are living with Parkinson's, a neurological disease that affects movement. And with so many places to search for information, it can be difficult to know where to begin. The Parkinson's Foundation has answers. Answers for everyone in the fight. We can help you understand the disease, help you find expert care, give you tips for living a better life, share the latest research, help you find local support, and there's a free helpline you can call. Find your answers and join us in the fight against Parkinson's. To learn more, please go to parkinson.org or call 1-800-4PD-INFO. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mike continues live on location at Newman Outdoor Field on this second day of the Summit League Baseball Tournament. Bright blue skies. The grounds crew getting everything ready. Batting practice going to start here in just a little bit. North Dakota State and Omaha getting ready for this third game of the tournament. This is an elimination game. The loser will go home, and the winner will play tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Lone game tomorrow. The winner of that will get a spot in the Summit League Championship Series. Our pleasure to be joined by Bryan Miller from the Summit League. I'm making sure I got to get the title right here, okay? Powell made sure I had to do this. Assistant Commissioner for Marketing, Sponsorships, and External Affairs. What does that mean?
It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, for sure. And again, it doesn't cover necessarily
everything you're doing, right?
That too as well. But the baseball, and I oversee cross country, indoor track, outdoor track, and baseball. But
so we were talking with RP yesterday about this on just for baseball alone, and we had a team you didn't know who was going to be in. Like up until last Saturday, we knew 3 of the teams. What does that mean on for you? How much are you sweating that out, or just like preparation? We're still preparing for. You got to prepare for 2 extra teams right now, right?
Yeah, 100%. And so we have some contingency plans and those type of things, and we work some things through. Again, it's a normal process, so we're used to it in the roundabout way. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to have that at the end of the regular season for have that a play-in game. But it is nicer when we know them a couple weeks in advance. The basketball tournament last year was our first year ever of having all 10 there, and that was nice for planning, graphics and all those type of things. But yeah. It's exciting to have that kind of come up to the tail end of the regular season and have that mean something.
So we were talking off air that you were running things for track a couple weeks ago up here. That is such a huge endeavor. It's a 3-day event. We've got hundreds of athletes. What the scale of that? Describe of getting that together. Then adding in the elements that came into play.
Yeah, indoor track. We'll be back up here in February for indoor track. Indoor track is totally different than outdoor track. First of all, it's only 2 days compared to the 3-day championship at outdoor track, but the weather elements are the toughest part. It's night and day difference, just being here 2 weeks ago and then coming here to baseball. There's a little bit more time to understand what's going on and those type of things. So my job here is once the game starts, it's under the umpires. At track and field, I'm actually part of the games committee, and so I have to understand the track a little bit more than maybe the idea of baseball here. So yeah, no, it's a full day of events, and it's never-ending looking at the sky and making sure it's going all right.
I'll talk about with baseball in a second, but when you see, like for 2 weeks ago, when you saw what the weather forecast is going to go from about 85 to like, it could be 50 and rainy. What's going through your mind? And you automatically had to move some stuff inside for the final day.
Yeah, for safety purposes, we moved them inside. And it provided a good atmosphere. NDSU has great facilities, so it's nice to move those indoors and have that option. And you guys were able to help us cover that and still provide that exposure to the student athletes. Yeah, weather is always that worry word for me. Ryan Powell will tell you I'm in the office and I look at those things and I got to stop looking. The longer I've been in the league, I understand I got to just take day by day and have that go. But a week
that's a message for all of us, by the way.
Yeah. But a week ago, I was looking at your guys' site, your weather crew, and understanding what they're saying locally, but then also from the national side. And this week didn't look the best a week ago, and now all of a sudden we're sitting here with bright blue skies.
I was trading texts with Ryan. I'm like, and then literally forecast changed on Monday. I'm like, all right, we're going to be okay. And then we had a beautiful day yesterday and another one on tap here today.
Yeah, picture-perfect baseball days. Ryan Powell and I have been overseeing baseball for the last 5 years, and we have not had a championship that was at noon and 6 on Wednesday and noon and 6 on Thursday.
That was my next question.
So we've never had that experience.
So last year in Tulsa, the first day gets wiped out. As her tournament director, then are you just like throwing things up in the air, like, all right, we gotta start from scratch?
Nope, we have a plan. If day one gets scratched, everything gets pushed back one day. That's why we have Sunday. We have till 11:59 or 10:59 p.m. Central Standard Time to get our AQ in. Doesn't mean we won't make the tournament. Just won't mean that we won't necessarily know exactly where we're at in that AQ. So we try to make sure that we meet that deadline. So the latest we can go is Sunday night. So right away, as soon as that first day gets washed out, we just push that back a day. If day two gets washed out, there's some contingency plans. One of those is going to a single elimination tournament. We try not to do that. As quickly as possible. But again, our first year at Oral Roberts, we had a lightning strike, had weather come through after game one, actually blew out the lights. So we had to adjust everything. Those are things we can't plan for. But we do have some contingencies as far as pushing with weather.
How difficult is that, Grant? You got a plan, and then basically, all right, well, we got to scrap everything as a league, and you want fans and exposure on that. Like, all right, well, we're completely wiped out a day because it's out of our control.
Yeah, no, it is difficult. And again, having a television partner like yourselves come here and put the time and effort into and then wipe a whole day. So there's a lot that has to go into thinking about it. Again, I don't want to bring up track and field, but we did have to postpone track and field for about 2 hours with a lightning delay, send the kids over to the indoor facility. That is a little bit more as far as getting back on track. We just have two teams here. We have fans, we have yourselves, but at track and field we had 400 student athletes and trying to figure out the schedule. And again, at outdoor track we don't have lights. Here we have lights, so we can play later into the evening.
I want to ask you, because I was asking RP about this, and this might be a question for Josh Fenton, but if you were to, like you did with basketball, to expand, if you were to do that to get 6 in here, what would that entail? That's a whole other day, correct, that you'd have to do that?
To do it the best we probably would. We would add a whole extra day, and it'd be a single elimination. It'd probably very well match the softball championships. The question
the play-in day that you have at softball.
Correct. Yep. The biggest thing is now, you mentioned it earlier on the segment here, that we have a single game tomorrow at 4:05, and the coaches love that. It gives them a little extra time to let their kids rest. Those are in those playing games, of course, to get into that championship game. We may have to talk about that if that ever happened to that point in time, whether or not that day stays there, because we could probably compact the game on that day as well.
Moving into a Wednesday-Saturday deal, describe that and how that's been received over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, again, the coaches love it. And again, if it helps the student athletes, that's the point of those movements. Again, the joint council or athletic directors maybe don't like necessarily the extra night stay and those type of things. During COVID, we actually shrunk it down to 3 days just to try to help save some costs and those type of things. But yeah, I think it helps. Again, it extends the championship, but it gives those that are coming back a chance to compete.
I mentioned this before you came on, to see the amount of college baseball postseason tournaments on television now is remarkable to me. I got home after us and I flipped on, I saw the Big Ten was still going, the SEC was going, the Big 12 is going. That is night and day from even 5 years ago for this particular week.
100%. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the top 10, the ESPN top 10, I think there was 8 out of the 10 were
college baseball
highlights. And again, that's majority of the athletics going on right now, so I understand. But yeah, it is exciting to see. And I think this game, again, Western Illinois departure kind of interrupts our schedule for next year. I'm working on that right now and trying to figure out what the best balance is there. But I think we need to locate those affiliates and or full-time members that can help us elevate that sport.
So you're the guy I have to ask about scheduling then?
For baseball anyway, yeah. So we have a scheduling consultant, and I'm working with that individual to try to figure out what's the best plan. The coaches, again, some agree that a double round robin is the best true champion for the regular season. I would agree with that. That's easy to agree with, right? You play everybody twice. But there's some things to be said about, again, playing in the north, trying to play the first or second week of March is not ideal to try to do that. Some years you can. But if we would an unbalanced schedule, you would be able to move some of those weeks and pull those down.
Was there any real trepidation in the league office when it's, I don't know, April 15th and the amount of snow that's not only also in South Dakota, but how much here in Fargo, that we may not have any of the championships we want to have in Fargo?
Yeah, so I had contingency plans for that as well. I reached out to Stevie Keller, Stevie Keller and Allison on the track and field side, and I spoke Scott Woken. We talked quite a bit back and forth. And again, with baseball, you guys were hosting regular season games leading up to this. At track and field, there was one event that got canceled, and they did a quick single-day event over here just to try to get that prepped. So track and field is a little bit different than baseball, but yeah, there was some worry. But again, Mother Nature works itself out. So
describe the mood in the league office here after a really successful Summit League basketball tournament we talked about with all 10 teams, and now unfortunately it's going to be back down to 9 for this upcoming year. That is the Super Bowl. I know it is for you guys. Describe how that event in your time in the league is completely the metamorphosis of it now, where it is a huge event that takes place in the city of Sioux Falls and now goes for 5 days.
Yeah, so again, I came from the Sioux Falls Sports Authority side, and they were the part that helped bring that tournament from Tulsa to Sioux Falls. And so being from that side of it, now moving to the conference side, it has definitely even grown since that point in time. So I came over to the league in 2018. I was with the Sports Authority from 16 and 17 tournament. And so just seeing, and 18, I guess, and just seeing the growth, the excitement behind it. From that side of it, I wasn't necessarily worried about the schools outside of the Sioux Falls area as far as coming to the tournament. Now from this role, we're trying to get that excitement to come to Sioux Falls and spend a day, maybe a couple days in Sioux Falls watching their team and compete. But yeah, the tournament has definitely kind of taken over our whole entire year. There's not a day that I don't do basketball.
That was my next question. So literally, even now, you're working on it for 2024?
Yeah, I still have our sponsorships.
Yeah.
Yep, so I'm wrapping up sponsorships, still trying to do that, trying to finish that up with my sponsors now, and then I'm already talking with new sponsors or renewing sponsors and that type of stuff. So my world, yes, I work on basketball every day.
I've already had the question. I don't know if you can answer for next year's format. Will it just be 8-9?
Yeah.
In that first day, or is all 9 teams involved?
So that hasn't been decided, but there's discussions to try to figure out what's the best, right? You're trying to protect the number 1 seed. There's a number 1 seed for a reason. They're trying to, have that individual, if that's the one that's going to go on the NCAA tournament at the end of the tournament, those type of things, trying to protect them, but also trying to find the best balance. So that hasn't been decided all the way. There's discussions about how to make that work. And again, people have different views, but just trying to figure that out. And that has to be decided sooner than later.
Right.
Premier Center needs to know. We need to know. Our teams need to know.
From being down there, what was the feedback you got on that first day of having 4 games there for the first time and having all 10 teams?
Again, from a planning purposes, it worked out really well, right? We knew everybody was coming. Everybody could book their hotels. There was no issues with those. Fans could book hotel rooms if they wanted to. Again, not knowing exactly what day they're playing.
Right.
But from a team perspective, I think every team, every sport that I oversee, as far as EQ sport, they all want to go to the tournament, whether it's baseball from my side, but even listening to our other counterparts, they all want to go. They all want to be a part of the postseason action. So I think everybody loved it. Again, fan base-wise, maybe it wasn't as strong at noon, but the games were really competitive.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing about it, too, as well. So
it's kind of a catch-22, I have to imagine, for the league office as well, that you'd love to have 1 or 2 of the Dakota schools there Friday, but you want to have them also in your prime windows on Saturday and Sunday as well.
Yeah, and again, it's crazy. We've actually sold out the lower bowl prior to the tournament, 5,000 seats prior to the tournament.
Being there, and that was my first time there in 10 years, so I had not been there to the Premier Center when we went in March, and seeing it, after seeing it on TV for so long, then seeing it in person on a Monday at noon, and it is filled. Granted, South Dakota State was playing in that game. It was unbelievable. There's no other place, and for women's basketball, there was no other place in the country that's going to get 5,000 on a Monday at noon like you guys had.
Yeah, and again, that's a testament to the schools for having fan bases and having them wanting to follow them. That's the biggest thing.
And I think the facility as well. I think that has a lot to do with it, too.
Let me tell you, you're going to be in for a treat.
Take it from Emerald. This is One Tasty Hour.
Let me just give you a little, just a little.
With this winner, simple chicken dinner.
40 closing olive. Oh, yeah, man.
Then, after 10 years, this kid chef is all grown up.
I can't even look at her. It makes me cry.
Plus,
I'm really excited. This is going to be a big, big thing.
School lunch never looked so cool. Next, Rachel.
Weekdays at 3 on WDAY. A spot in the NCAA tournament is on the line. Watch the 2023 Summit League Baseball Championship live from Fargo, May 24th through the 27th. See the top 4 teams battle for the Summit League title only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus. 2 games start at noon and 6 p.m., both Wednesday and Thursday. 1 game at 4 on Friday. Then the championship coverage begins Saturday at 1. Watch the 2023 Summit League Baseball Championship only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus.
If you're driven by an adventurous heart, you're in luck.
The thoughtfully redesigned 2023 Subaru Outback shares your spirit with standard symmetrical all-wheel drive plus up to 32 miles per gallon, a 260 horsepower turbocharged engine, advanced technology, and an extra-large touchscreen. The 2023 Subaru Outback. Go where love takes you.
It's Outback Days, going on now at Muscatel Subaru.
Overcoming drug addiction was difficult, but I found the path to recovery that worked for me. Treatment helped me come to terms with the issues in my life that caused me to use drugs. And I found better ways to cope. Learning I had a substance use disorder helped me realize I needed to make a change. The road to recovery is different for everyone. There were good days and bad days. But I found strength in seeking help. My friends and family made a huge difference in my recovery. I never gave up. I found my path, and I keep walking it every day. Find the path that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe, it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Do you want to meet a family with a transgender kid? Here we are. Max loves to do backflips. Max loves to play his ukulele. Max loves to just be a kid and just be himself. When I found out I was pregnant, all I really wanted was a happy, healthy, whole child. And that's what I got. I think it's really important for people to know that trans kids don't have a political agenda. They are just kids. Like any parent, we love our kids unconditionally, and we will never stop fighting for them. Stand with us. Protect our families.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Hot Mike here on WDAY Extra, Inforum.com, KSFL TV in Sioux Falls. Apologize for the brief technical difficulties. Our thanks to Bryan Miller for joining us there from the Summit League. Give us his thoughts on putting together a baseball tournament, how it all goes into shape here, and also on the Summit League basketball tournament, which I know plenty have had questions to me about after the news a couple weeks ago with Western Illinois announcing its departure from the league and how the format of the tournament will look, considering that we will be down to 9 teams next season. Would all 9 make it, or will they go back to just the top 8, which we had for the longest time? The top 8 teams made it to the Summit League tournament and was bracketed as such. I think they really like the extra day. I think they like the extra revenue from that. Even if they go from 4 games down to 2 on Friday, I think a night session on a Friday night would make a heck of a lot of sense. Now, I think what Bryan was alluding to is, do you protect the number 1 seed and maybe you do have them play the play-in winner? Does the 2 seed get the play-in winner, and the number 1 seed gets rewarded with something there? Potential? I don't know. I think everything's up for discussion. Commissioner of the Summit League, Josh Fenton, is going to be here coming up on Saturday. Certainly get his thoughts about where things are going there on that. So appreciate Bryan coming by and giving us his thoughts on that and where things stand with the league. As we sit here on this Thursday morning, you're hearing the clanging of the bats. Omaha is taking its batting practice now. If you missed our game yesterday, the Mavericks have a standout player in Mike Bovee, who plays third base for him, likely going to be taken to the first 3 rounds, maybe the second round of the Major League Baseball draft coming up in July. He's their leadoff hitter. Had a hit yesterday in the game against Oral Roberts. It'll be really interesting to see how he plays here today, potentially his final college game before the Major League Baseball draft, and how NDSU is going to pitch to him. This is a team that has some guys they can hit the ball, they can produce some runs, and it's going to be on NDSU to see if they can shut them down. And you know, we're visiting with Mike Scogan about this yesterday in the broadcast as the SDSU game got away from the Bison, how they shake this off and get back on and see if they can advance to Friday. That's all it's about. You have to flush that game last night, and I think his point is well taken on that. The game last night is easier to forget, as opposed to if you lost 6-5 in 11 innings, or it was a walk-off home run, that sort of thing. That's how SDSU won the game, as opposed to how it actually played out last night. It's probably a little bit easier to take, as opposed to losing a close game like that. So we mentioned these 2 teams played just a couple weeks ago, and that was a victory for both teams as they got the series shortened down to just 2 games instead of what it was going to be on 3. We will take a break. Hot Mike continues after this. We get ready for hour 2 on this Thursday morning. Back after this at Newman Outdoor Field on WDAY Extra, KSFL TV, Inforum.com, and Sioux Falls Live. We'll be back right after this.
Stay prepared for the days and nights ahead with the best weather team. Download the Storm Tracker app, powered by Laney's. Get alerts and updates straight from the WDAY Storm Tracker team with accurate weather reports specific to your area. Just search WDAY in the Apple or Google Play Store. Download the Storm Tracker app and be ready to plan your day. The Storm Tracker app, powered by Laney's. Download it today. Send your weather-related photos or video to the WDAY Storm Tracker team. Contact weather@wday.com or share them with us on Facebook and Instagram. Keeping an eye on the sky. The WDAY Storm Tracker team.
I've been doing this for a long time. Somebody has to stand up for victims.
Detective Stabler, my partner, Detective Benson.
The world is changing. It took a lot of courage to get up on that stand. There's no stigma in coming forward. Please help me stop him.
He's not gonna ever be able to hurt you again. I promise you, I'll protect you. I'm not gonna stop until we find this guy.
Weekdays at 12 p.m.
Thanks for buying a fishing license.
What the?
I know, but listen. I want you to picture all the great things this simple purchase does. Like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean so families can fish and swim, and maintaining a healthy fish population.
What's Mom doing?
It also provides fishing education and activities for the kids, and funds long-term plans to protect our lakes and streams.
Wow.
Wow is right.
Did he?
When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot, because every dollar from a license purchase protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Learn more at takemefishing.org.
Sorry, I'm out sick again. I just can't shake this fever.
Spread by mosquito bites, West Nile virus is found in nearly every state across the country.
Elena had another asthma attack. She's really sad to miss school again.
Asthma, a leading chronic illness among children and youth in the U.S., can often be triggered by allergens from household pests.
Hi, Chief. I finally got a diagnosis. It's Lyme disease. I'll be out for a few days, maybe longer.
Every year, nearly 300,000 people nationwide are diagnosed with Lyme disease, an illness from tick bites.
Coach, I'm at the hospital. I got stung by something and had a bad allergic reaction. I'm not going to make the game.
Stinging insects send more than 500,000 people to the emergency room every year. Don't let pests force you to take a sick day. Learn how to protect yourself and your family at pestworld.org.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. What about those barbecues you plan in detail for your family? Or your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. The same way you plan each detail for those moments, start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
The end of hunger and poverty starts here. Your gift of an animal from Heifer International can help a family with food and income, all while caring for the earth. Heifer International. Learn more at heifer.org.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Hour 2 of Hot Mike, ready to rock and roll here on this Thursday morning. WDAY Extra, KSFL TV, Inforum.com as we rejoin you from Newman Outdoor Field on this Thursday morning. Omaha taking batting practice as the Mavericks are getting ready for the first game of the day as they're going to take on North Dakota State. Our coverage begins at noon here on WDAY Extra. And then South Dakota State taking on Oral Roberts in our second game, which is going to be at 6 o'clock here tonight. We're talking baseball, but also my calendar tells me that it is 100 days out from the start of the college football season, which our next guest probably doesn't need any reminders of that, as September 2nd is 100 days from today. North Dakota State will be playing football at U.S. Bank Stadium against Eastern Washington. The head football coach of the Bison, Matt Entz, is here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Dom.
I know you are a great baseball mind. What position did you play in your baseball days?
First base.
Yeah?
Caught a little bit, but mostly first.
Slugging first baseman, I have to imagine?
I didn't hit very well.
How long did you play it? Through high school?
I played up through about 9th grade.
Okay.
And then my senior year, my buddies talked me out going out again.
Yeah.
And so it was
one last run.
I was mostly a bullpen catcher then.
Well, baseball is pretty strong in your family, obviously. Your youngest son is going to be playing collegiate baseball. Tell us about that, about his turn, and when baseball really became the dominant sport for him.
Well, he's always had an affinity towards it. I think the older he got, Dad knew the least about it. And so what sport can I play where he can't correct me or tell me what I'm doing or not doing? So, I mean, he's always loved playing. It's a game of failure.
3 out of 10 times, you're really good, right?
Exactly. You hit the ball 4 out of 10, you're a Hall of Famer
right,
all of a sudden.
yeah, right.
You know, and so it's much different than every other sport in that regards. It's taken him some time to understand that, you know, I think when he was younger, it was, if I don't go 10 for 10, then I'm no good. And so he struggled with that, but he's doing a really good job. They're in their conference tournament right now, have a game on Friday. Heading down to DMAC, down in Boone, Iowa, to play some junior college baseball. And so I anticipate the Interstate 35 will be worn with my wife's vehicle down there to see him play and to see him grow. I know he's really excited. I think, you know, last year DMAC played close to 60, 65 games in their season, and just he's loved every minute of high school baseball and Legion baseball in the state of North Dakota, but Mother Nature impacts it so much.
No doubt.
And even just to go 5 or 6 hours to the south, how the weather changes, and all of a sudden you're playing games in potentially March or even late February if you go down to Kansas City. And so we're looking forward to it. We said we're probably going to spend next spring break down in Oklahoma and Texas at some junior college baseball fields, but that'll be all right.
Well, I mean, you've spent several Julys and Augusts, you know, in Dickinson, North Dakota, or everywhere else on Legion stuff, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I know last summer we spent about 6 days in Minneapolis when they won the Gopher Classic.
Yep.
You know, which was I never
it's
really.
It's a dynamite tournament there. It's really impressive.
And I never really realized the sheer magnitude of that tournament. There's nearly 100 teams there, and they play at about 10 different sites. And, you know, to win that, be the first, and I think only North Dakota team to ever go down there and win that tournament was pretty cool. And it was baseball for 7 days straight. And I think they had played a game 7 days in a row, and it was amazing that, you know, the arms could hold up, and, you know, they never really went into a slump while they were down there, and got to play teams from all over the country.
What was that recruiting process like, as opposed to obviously recruiting your son to play football? How did that, on the baseball side of things, how different was that?
Well, you know, in baseball, there's these showcases. There's, what is it? Is it PBA or PBR?
Yep.
And so, you know, he dove into some of that stuff. Went down to Minneapolis a few times. There was one here locally. But all of a sudden, you start playing all these tournaments down in Omaha. You play in a tournament down the Gopher Classic. There was always a handful of coaches there to watch you. You know, just doing like what we do, but we don't necessarily get to see kids play games when they do it.
Right.
But you look behind the home plate, there'd be 4 or 5 guys with guns, and, you know, so I mean they're getting live reps, where sometimes in the football world you're trying to get all the measurables and then forecast if you think a young man can he put weight on? Does his body hold weight?
I was going to say, how many football games do you actually go and watch? Can you watch during the season? You're limited, I know, first, but...
Yeah, we only get X number, like 50 days of evaluations during the fall. We use most of those during the bye week, because all of a sudden if you have 8 or 9 guys out for 3 days, you've used half of it.
Yep.
You know, I've been fortunate, you know, when my boys were both at Cheyenne, I could go to games and it didn't count because of being a dad. So, of course, you know, it was good to be able to see a guy like Bree Capino. I mean, you know, knew right away, probably even as his junior year, that I thought this was a young man that he'd look really good running the ball.
Cole Men's another one.
In the green and yellow. Yep. And so, you know, same with a guy like Carter Men's. Why one of the first offers he had as a college or a high school football player was from North Dakota State, and just because I had an opportunity to see him play about 10 different times. So that's great for us. But we, like you said, we're so worried about just taking care of business and our process during the week. We seldom get to many games. We might get to a second half of a game locally here, but it gets tough. I want our emphasis to be the young men on our football team at that moment right then. And I think recruits appreciate that. That's what they would want once they become part, you know, rather than us just, you know, leaving the hotel if we're on the road or even here in town, and we're more concerned about a 17-year-old than we are making sure we execute on Saturday.
I know some fans understand now there is no lull in the college football season, certainly for a Division I head football coach. But as we near Memorial Day, where are things right now with the North Dakota State football program?
We just got done with about 3 weeks of recruiting, and this was probably one of the probably of my 4 years, now going into my 5th year being a head football coach, I spent more time on the road this spring than I have in years past.
Was that a plan?
It was, because FCS football head coaches can be on the road, and we took it as an advance. So I didn't really go to an area. I was more people-driven, and going to try to watch workouts and evaluate, some of the kids that we already have offered. And so, I spent a lot of my time primarily in the Midwest, Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, of course. The last week was in, the Dakotas. And so, and our coaches, I was down in Florida for a little bit, so our coaches were all over the place. And again, just trying to identify the right people, the right character of young men that can come and be successful here. We're in the ramp-up stages of camps. Those are just coming right around the corner.
Next month, right?
Yep. Yeah. And they'll be here before you know it. With some changes in some NCAA, a couple years ago, they allowed June. You can have official visits. Yep. We'll probably have 3 to maybe 4 of those during the month of June. And so right now, watching spring cut-ups, always recruiting. There's still some needs and things that we're still trying to, make sure that we're prepared for the 23 season. We've had a few kids on campus already this early summer, if you will. And so we seem to find plenty of things to do.
There's never a shortage of things to discuss as well. You have 3 commits already in for 2024. I know you can't talk about them specifically, but is that a good spot where you want to be on the recruiting
I think
countdown, I guess?
I think it is. I think if you look at where the young men are from, I think it's I think you always got to take care of your home territory first. And so I think there'll be a handful of others coming in the very near future, especially, we alluded to it earlier, our camps are coming around. Like, what are we, like the weekend of the 17th and the weekend of the 24th? And, I think right now we're sitting at probably about 600 kids per camp. And the week before is our youth camp. You'll get a kick out of this. We're going to be probably around 1,200 elementary age kids.
Wow.
So that's exciting just to know that the green and yellow has that much impact on our young people in this community. And it's a blast, but it's also maybe the world's largest babysitting service for those 3 days. But I mean, it's, as you know, especially when you're with the 1st through 4th graders. Dom, there's no filter on those kids, and they'll tell you exactly what they think. And but we're gonna. I mean, the indoor, the Hanson Yagi field will be packed. Dakota will be full. We have access to the dome, and so I mean, it's 4 fields are going to have a ton of kids. But one of the neat things with the indoor being completed is with our high school camps now is, Mother Nature doesn't get to impact us nearly as much anymore. We're having 2 indoors, and that's one of the things that we can sell is that, our camp will carry on regardless of lightning or rain or whatever Mother Nature wants to throw at us.
I mentioned it's 100 days out from Eastern Washington at U.S. Bank Stadium. I feel like we've been talking about this for 2 years, and now here it's around the corner. Have you got, when you've been on the road, especially down in the Twin Cities, is there some buzz about the game at U.S. Bank?
Oh, I think so. I think, either from high school coaches always want to ask, like, do you have an FBS game this year? And no, we don't. We have a destination game is kind of what I've told them. And I think they all think that's really cool. I mean, I was down there for kind of an initial tour. And I mean, you talk about just I've been down there for games before. It's an unbelievable venue, and they're going to take the time and effort to change out some of the coloring to green and yellow.
Oh, okay, nice.
To match. I think our logo will be on the middle of the field. And so, our fans are going to feel like, it's a home game in Minneapolis. And I hope our fans continue to come out, buy those tickets, because, I go back just, my first year, 2019, and I still have a picture of kind of looking from center field back into home plate, and just the amount of green and yellow that was in target field. If we can do something like that, I think it not only is going to help generate excitement for this year, but for future years. People are going to know that our fans travel. Doesn't matter if it's 3 hours or if it's down to Tucson, Arizona, like they did this last year.
Where do you get a sense being on the road? Bison fans, what are they telling you? Because I'm sure there's no filter when you get feedback from fans of how the last game of last season went. What are you hearing when you talk to fans about where Bison football's at?
I think people are still excited about it. Of course, nobody's happy with the last game of last year, but I think I think our fans have grown kind of like we have to every year's a new year. And you go into it with new expectations and new level of excitement. No two teams are ever the same. There's always a different character piece to it, different leadership, different guys sitting in the front row, different veteran group. And this year with a little bit of change in staff, there's some other things too that go with it. And that's why we're trying to put a lot of time into watching cut-ups and making sure that we're detailing our work here, because the month of June becomes you never feel like you even go home. You're here through the weekends, and it's like, 30 days straight of football, which is a great thing. And then we'll give our coaches a little bit of time off in the month of July to get rested and ready to go. But our kids, they're here. We have probably about 40 kids in town right now, and everyone will be here Wednesday, the 31st. And just from talking to some of our guys on the phone and checking in on them, I think and even our spring ball, we got better as spring ball went on, and I'm excited. I know we got to take advantage of Jim Kramer does an unbelievable job with our kids in the off season. We have to continue to emphasize and stress the urgency that we need to have, especially for some young guys to step up and elevate and be able to play. But I go back, Dom, to 2015, and a guy like Robbie Grimsley, who by the middle of the year was locked into the details, and we just complimentary football is going to have to rule at NDSU for us to be successful early in the 2023 season.
You got a couple names for it just to keep an eye on when fall camp rolls around? That watching your spring cut-ups, like, okay, these are guys that they're going to get more reps on the field.
Well, I think we ended spring ball healthier than we started it, because we got some guys who had, end of the season injuries back. Cole Wisniewski is going to be one of them that I think just continues to.
Where's he playing next year?
Wherever he wants.
So he's the new Hunter Lipke football player? Is that designation?
I don't know if he's quite like that, but we worked out him at boundary safety, and then of course he has a ton of snaps under his belt as a linebacker. But he's a guy. I think we have really good depth up front. I know people get concerned about when you lose pass rushers, but I think you talk to most starts, Javier Derrick, Cody Heisman, Jackson Dutenheffer.
Yep.
We have a lot of depth at D tackle. I think defensive end, the same thing right now. So, and we have some really good young kids that Toby Anene is going to help us. Kelton McCaslin is going to help us. So offensively, we were kind of lacking our fullbacks during spring, and so
just because they had beat up and they had a ton of football last year,
and so that forced us to work with some lighter personnel groupings all spring, which was good. We had 3 wide receivers on the field, probably more than we didn't, and you saw guys like Chris Harris had a great spring.
El Paso kid.
Yep. Young man from Texas. Bryce Lance had a good spring. Raja, Braylon, Tyler Terhart. I can go on and on. Zach Mathis is Zach. I mean, steady and big catch radius and things. So, looking for Joe Stoffel was really good for us in the pass game, and is really starting to take kind of ownership of that, the crew chiefs and the tight ends. So, there's a lot of, and as you know, we go 5 days, 6 days until our first day off in fall camp, and I'll be talking about 3 or 4 different names, which is a good thing.
Well, the guys that are going to get here in about 2 weeks, right? Your freshman class for 2020, invariably there will be 1 or 2 that you'll see, and I know you can't look at them during the summer. When you get there on August 2nd, and like, all right, well, they may have developed quicker than we thought, that we may need to get them on the field.
Well, that's one of the things we're going to try to do this summer is take advantage of some of our access time with some of our kids and get out and do some drill work. So we have an idea going into August who might be the freshman that can either the 4-game rule or just we yank the shirt. One of the guys defensively is Noah Taylor out of Lamont, Illinois. While I was over in Illinois recruiting a little bit, I stopped by the high school, had opportunity to see him, saw a track meet. He's 210 pounds, and he's running a sub-11 right now and playing baseball at the same time. I mean, I think we stole one. And so, you know, big physical safety that I think can find a way to help us, special teams, whatever it might be. But there's going to be somebody else out there, too, that comes in, has a great summer, and starts to understand what we're doing. And that's why we bring guys in, is so we can kind of shorten that learning curve and give them an opportunity to help us. And I'm looking forward to it. But they show up on June 11th.
Okay.
And we'll have probably about 20, 25 guys in this summer.
A couple of minutes left here with Matt Entz. I have not had a chance to ask you, before you came to Fargo, people don't know that you spent time in Macomb, Illinois.
Yep.
The news on Western Illinois leaving, I know you have a lot of ties there. A lot of Chris Kleiman was there as well.
Right.
Tell me about that, your thoughts on them moving on and what that does in the Missouri Valley Football Conference.
Well, you know, I was shocked. I got a phone call from Matt Larson kind of out of the blue, and I think I found out about 5 minutes after he did. We had just had our conference meeting, and there was no indication of any of this. And you go back and try to read into it, and I don't know if I saw any indication at that time either. You know, someone leaving your league's never good. Nothing that you ever want to see someone leave, because, you know, Western Illinois, I know when I was with the university, when I was at UNI, University of Northern Iowa, you know, man, they had some really good football teams. I think 2010 they were conference champions.
They came up here and won. They won the Fargo Dome that year.
I know they beat us down there. In Macomb, and so it's unfortunate. You know, that program has kind of seen its peaks and valleys. When Coach Nielsen was there, they had some good things going on. Playoff team, won a playoff game, but I'm sure this was. I got to believe it was a financial decision at the end of the day, with the anticipation that they can eliminate some flights. They can more drivable games when you start talking about Eastern Illinois, Tennessee Martin. You know, I'm sure their non-conference. Their non-conference games are going to be trying to find Illinois State and Southern Illinois are going to now become, you know, hopefully non-conference games for them, so they can stay kind of right there in that region. But, you know, as far as where the Missouri Valley goes, I mean, in theory, we were kind of at a unique point because you didn't play 3 teams.
Right.
You know,
now you're back to 2.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to what it was pre-Murray State. You just don't play 2 teams. I think, you know, it'll be interesting to see, you know, what our leadership in our league thinks about, you know, expansion, because we all know, you know, too, Dom, it's not over at the Power 5 level. I think once the dust settles with some media rights and some contractual things, you're going to see some more changing, you know, at either the Group of 5, Power 5, and again, everything in college football trickles down from, at the end of the day, trickles down from the NFL.
Cody Mauch is a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How often did they talk to you a whole lot? He told me they talked to him a bit, but not a ton.
Yeah, it wasn't over the top.
Okay.
It wasn't where you were like, boy, this is a no-brainer. Yeah, they got to be. There was other teams that I had more conversation with, or our staff in general had conversations with, and so. But again, I mean, I think it's exciting for him, and you know, I know his teammates were giving him a bad time, making sure he packed his sunscreen. You know. Big redhead down in Tampa. Better be careful now.
Well, how about this though? You guys play at US Bank Stadium, and the week following, Tampa plays at US Bank Stadium against the Vikings. So I can imagine there's plenty of Bison fans that might make it 2 weeks in a row down there.
They should.
Yeah,
they should. And that's, you know, you're bringing up kind of when we come into the office on Sunday, we're in from about noon to 8, 9 o'clock at night. Every TV in that place, and there's probably 20 of them in our offices, is on some game. And it's not their favorite. It's on whoever the Bison. So if it's Cordell Volson, or if it's Cody Mauch or Trey Lance or Ben Ellefson or Christian Easton, you have Tuska. I mean, it's so cool to see those guys come from NDSU and you know, be prepared to play at the next level. And I still think it's, you know, we do a great, you know, Jim Kramer and his developmental program. emphasizing fundamentals, emphasizing just sound football fundamentals here at NDSU can take you a long ways.
I know Josh Hayes left under not maybe the best of circumstances because he went in the portal, but he also got drafted, a guy who started in the national championship game as a freshman, ended up winning 3 titles for you. That's pretty cool as well. He's going to Tampa as well.
You're exactly. And I had a brief conversation with Josh the day he got drafted.
Nice.
And so, well, you never want to see, or you never like anyone leaving the program. And I tell guys this, but I don't have to like your decision.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't affect how I feel about them. Sometimes I relate it to, man, Kellen and Connor, I love them to death, but I don't always like them. They make some bad decisions sometimes too. So probably, I don't know if it's good or bad now, but I treat everyone pretty much like I would my own kids, and that's the way it is.
Well, last question for you off that, because fans will see the guys that left in the portal, especially a couple that left during spring football. How do you, on the outside, handle that, knowing, and I say this on my show every day, this is the business of Division I football. As a coach, do you have to talk internally on your team when something like that happens in the middle, when a Tony Pierce leaves in the middle of spring football? Is that something you have to address the team about?
I didn't, guys are going to make their decisions. I probably talk more to the leadership of the team rather than the whole football team. It was unique with Tony went through 14 practices with us.
Right.
And so, unique timing, but I think that's part of the byproduct of having the extra year. Everyone sees it just as that. It's extra. Yeah. It's like a bonus year where I can go do whatever I want. And it's unfortunate, though. We've had some guys who have left the program who, I don't know if they're trying to get away from issues here, and they think a new color jersey is going to fix it, because there's a couple guys who now academically haven't been able to make it. And so regardless of your reasons, you have to still take care of your business in the classroom to maintain your eligibility. But it does create, we still needed, there's room on our football team where we could add a
That's
guy.
My last question. Is there something you're looking at still?
Yep, we are. Recruiting is year-round now. It doesn't stop, and those are decisions that I didn't make. But people at the NCAA or people that thought that the transfer portal was the right thing to do. We still got to kind of we still have 10 days or so to figure it out and get someone here. And again, we're only going to bring people here that are going to be the right fit. We probably have to work a little bit faster in the recruiting process than you would a high school student. But at the same time, we're still going to emphasize character, toughness, football IQ, academic IQ, and then athleticism. And those are the things that are going to be critical for us and have enabled us to recruit the right type of kids here at NDSU.
Thanks so much for doing this, bud. I always love talking football with you, even on, May 25th, as we're 100 days out from game at US Bank. That's going to be a pretty cool environment that day down there.
It will be, and I appreciate, Dom, I appreciate everything you've done for us. You guys, again, another great year of being behind the mic for the Bison. And
Did you evaluate my cut-ups yet? Have you done that?
No, that's I'm going to do that on a pontoon.
Everybody else does, so
I'm going to do that on a pontoon somewhere. So.
I'm too loud. Good. You might scare the ducks and the geese away, man. I don't know if you want to do that.
No. So you know what? It's great. Again, everyone frustrated how the season ended, but I'm excited that I think we got some kids with a chip on the shoulder. We got some young kids that, again, every year we have the same conversation, the same narrative. Oh, what are we going to do here or there? And you know what we're going to do? We're going to coach the heck out of these young men. And we're going to, one thing we're not afraid of here at NDSU, and that's work. And so I think that's become one of those words that have become kind of taboo in our world right now. And if you're going to be a Bison, you better be able to handle the WORK.
Thanks so much for coming by, and we'll talk soon, all right?
You bet.
Have a good
appreciate
summer.
it.
There goes Matt Entz, North Dakota State head football coach, joining us this morning on Hot Mic. We'll take a break. Hot Mic continues live from Newman Outdoor Field right after this.
Get 11% off everything at Menards and start your next project today. Greenworks 40-volt tools are lightweight, start instantly, and require virtually no maintenance. Right now, pick up this Greenworks push lawnmower for just $299.99 after rebate. Keeping your pool clean is simple with help from Menards. This convenient maintenance kit makes it easy to enjoy clean pool water all summer long. Right now, only $19.99 after 11% rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
Together we are powerful.
I really believe that in my spirit and in my heart.
We've been working on this since the ancient times, and you should be all right.
Oh, you're crying! I'm underneath a microscope all the time. You deserve to be loved and respected.
Weekdays at 2 p.m.
I'll bet joining Medicare probably isn't on your bucket list. Riding in a balloon, traveling the world, learning the tango, something more like that, right? But now that you need to choose a Medicare plan, even though it might not be exciting, it sure is important. That's why I chose Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. Blue Cross is nonprofit, so instead of making shareholders wealthy, they focus on making you and me healthy. You should call or go online to get this free step-by-step guide to Medicare. It can help you understand your Medicare benefits and how Blue Cross gives you more value for your money. 96% of doctors and hospitals in Minnesota are in the Blue Cross network. So just about anywhere you go, you're covered. And just like me, almost half of Minnesota seniors have a Blue Cross Medicare plan. Maybe you're interested in a plan that combines medical and prescription coverage. Well, here's how Blue Cross has you covered there as well.
Blue Cross offers Medicare Advantage plans that include prescription drug coverage, $0 primary care doctor visits, and many other benefits. Some plans start at a $0 monthly plan premium. Plus, select plans include $0 copays on insulin and preferred generic medications. Blue Cross Medicare Advantage plans also provide extra perks at no extra cost. From dental, hearing, and vision benefits to Silver Sneakers fitness memberships and even benefits for over-the-counter medications. To learn more about why Blue Cross is the best choice, call or go online now for your free copy of this informative step-by-step guide to Medicare. There's absolutely no obligation.
Blue Cross has been offering Medicare plans since 1965, when Medicare first started. They're all about keeping folks like you and me healthy, so we can keep doing things we like, or tackle things from our bucket list.
Call or go online now. You and Blue, better together.
What would you give for a child you loved to make their wish come true? To help them fight a critical illness? Just imagine what you'd do. You see, wishes are so powerful, and you can make them real. They can give a child back their childhood, even change the way they feel. Every single one of us can make the stars align, because when we come together, hope and joy will shine.
Back here on Hot Mic, WDAY Extra, KSFL TV at Sioux Falls, Inforum.com. A live look here at Newman Outdoor Field. Our thanks to Bison head football coach Matt Entz. A lot to digest from that. As we mentioned, 100 days out from the North Dakota State season opener, as they'll take on Eastern Washington September the 2nd at US Bank Stadium. Of course, all Bison football games you'll see this fall on WDAY. Looking forward to another year of coverage and an intriguing season on deck. The Bison with virtually 7 home games, with that game at US Bank Stadium, a home game as well, and matchups with Central Arkansas and Maine coming into US Bank Stadium, or excuse me, to the Fargo Dome, and then before conference home games, the Bison do have a trip to Brookings in November. Already been early rumblings about College Game Day potentially going to Brookings for that for the second time since 2019. Of course, they went for that matchup. Depending on how things play out this season, that could be number 1 versus number 2 at that part of the schedule. Also just saw that ESPN announcing game times. As we mentioned, we're 100 days out, so you're going to see a bunch of college football stuff today. University of South Dakota will open up the 2023 season at Missouri. That game has been moved now to a Thursday night. 7 o'clock on the SEC network. So if you're starting to get your college football fix that night, you've got USD Mizzou at 7, and I believe at 8 Central Time, you're going to have Nebraska and Minnesota on that final day of August. So things are starting to come into picture for the college football schedule. Exciting times. As we're mentioned, 100 days out from the start of the season. But we've got plenty of baseball here still on tap as North Dakota State taking its batting practice. The Bison in a must-win game coming up here in about 90 minutes as they'll take on Omaha, with the winner moving on to the elimination game tomorrow to play the loser of the game tonight between Oral Roberts and South Dakota State. We'll take a break. We'll get back on schedule here. You'll hear from West Fargo's Tristan Roehrich about his start today, trying to keep the Bison season alive and match it up with his old high school buddy, Ryan Barassa from South Dakota State. Much more on Hot Mic as we continue on WDAY Extra, KSFL, and Inforum.com.
Start with 15% off all furniture, both in stock and special orders. Then save an extra 5% when you pay by cash or credit card. It all adds up to great savings during the Memorial Day sale on now in the Amish Gallery.
Where should I walk? Right here? Is this good?
Yeah, you can walk right there. This is your show. Do whatever you want.
You walk in.
Live with Kelly and Mark.
Wow, that was a nice reception.
Every weekday morning, we're sitting on a couch with the new co-host, husband and wife team.
Weekdays at 9 a.m.
Road trip? Road trip. Summer's here. Time for a road trip.
A spot in the NCAA tournament is on the line. Watch the 2023 Summit League Baseball Championship live from Fargo, May 24th through the 27th. See the top 4 teams battle for the Summit League title only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus. 2 games start at noon and 6 p.m., both Wednesday and Thursday. 1 game at 4 on Friday. Then the championship coverage begins Saturday at 1. Watch the 2023 Summit League Baseball Championship only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus.
I'm Naheem Hines, running back for the Indianapolis Colts and proud supporter of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. My mom was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy when I was 14, and I watched her struggle. But MDA helped her get the best treatments and care, and they also help kids like my buddy Ethan.
My name is Ethan, and I'm 12 years old. Thanks to the Muscular Dystrophy Association and people like you, I have more hope than ever before. From day one, they've treated me like family at my local care center. MDA is the only one that funds over 150 care centers across the U.S. to help provide state-of-the-art care for adults and kids like me.
For over 70 years, MDA has been transforming the lives of people living with muscular dystrophy, ALS, and other related neuromuscular diseases. They fund the research for breakthrough treatments, care, and cures. And MDA provides support to thousands of families like mine and Ethan's in communities like yours. Thanks to MDA, kids and adults can live life to its fullest. Join us and learn more at mda.org today.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. He asked all his therapists to help him undertake some of the house chores. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey.
Start with 15% off all furniture, both in stock and special orders. Then save an extra 5% when you pay by cash or credit card. It all adds up to great savings during the Memorial Day sale on now in the Amish Gallery.
Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mic continues live on location here at Newman Outdoor Field. Beautiful day. The wind is gusting. It's definitely going to be a factor again. That wind is blowing out to left field, so we saw it last night. Anything gets up there, we're going to see some balls leave the ballpark, and it is going to be windy the rest of the tournament here. So for the next couple days, it's going to be a factor that teams and defenses are going to have to account for here over the next couple days. Just wanted to unpack a couple things after our visit with Matt Entz. We appreciate his time of stopping by here. I thought it was interesting what he was discussing on the incoming freshman that'll be here on June the 11th, that there will be some hard evaluation of potential players that could be on the field come September 2nd when the Bison play against Eastern Washington. I think the schedule sets up, and Eric had it up there, we can bring it up again, guys, when you have a second, that, again, Maine and Central Arkansas, all due respect, I don't believe they're going to be contenders in their leagues, either in the CAA or in the Southland this season. That is the trial run, so to speak. If you have a redshirt freshman, if you have a true freshman that has started to really impress, that they could get some significant run, heck, even against South Dakota. I think it might be another long year for Bob Nielsen's team in Vermilion, that you play, essentially, you're not leaving Fargo till the first weekend of October. U.S. Bank, yeah. That's a virtual home game they're going to have, that you've got the opportunity to really find out who can play on your roster for spots they're talking about. And I know he's going to be cagey with me about what Cole Wisniewski's role is going to be on this football team in 2023. He could be a safety. He could be back at linebacker. But there's a real opportunity here that they can flesh out some guys that they really – and Noah Taylor, we had on our show last summer when he committed, and we talked to him on signing day. That is an impressive young man that he could very well fill that Robbie Grimsley role. And how many times have we said it on this show, and you've heard Entz say it, that the further away you are from the football, the more opportunity you have a chance to play early on in your career. And there's a laundry list of guys. You can go from Robbie Grimsley to R.J. Urzendowski. You can go on down the line of guys that have come in as freshmen and had contributions. Now, that may have slowed up the last couple of years, and I attribute that more not to necessarily the level of the player, but for the roster backhaul, so to speak, of guys that are using their extra years of eligibility. We're still going to be in that for another 2 football seasons, 23 and 24, maybe into 25 as well, that guys have not used up their eligibility. So that's an important note, I thought, take from there. Also on the recruiting piece of this, and we've talked to the 3 commits, Isaiah St. Romain, who committed out of Williston, Peter Haugo, the Fargo North kid, and Nate Tasted from Roulette. That was a major emphasis for the Bison coaching staff of 2024, that the commits that were potential for the class of 24 in North Dakota was as high as it's been in a few years. I think last year they knew there was a couple of highlight guys. Carter Menz was the big one, that they didn't get him from Cheyenne, who ended up going to the University of Minnesota, that they had set their goals pretty high, that let's see if we can get as many. Riley Sunram was obviously the golden jewel. He was the one out there from Kindred, and he ended up going to the University of Minnesota. The other 3 they got. Now, there's one other big prize out there, and that's Coy Okeson from Bishop Ryan out in Minot. P.J. Fleck has got his teeth in there. We know Matt Rule has been significantly interested from Nebraska. He just tweeted out yesterday Okeson did an offer from Air Force. The Bison are strong in on that. And when Tasted had joined us 2 weeks ago after he committed to discuss, and I asked him hey, you're working on trying to get anybody else? And I think he mentioned Coy by name to get him here. That would be the last piece. Now, granted, they're obviously going to branch out and go into Minnesota, Wisconsin, and hit Florida, Georgia, Texas, Arizona like they have. But that would be, you want to talk about home runs in the state, that would be the last piece if they're able to get that one out of the state of North Dakota. And this is no slam on UND. It's going to come across as homerism, but that's the difference right now, that NDSU's getting everybody. UND's not in the conversation on those guys. That's the frustrating part. I'm sure it is for the UND staff, but that's where the line is right now in high school football recruiting. And UND fans will point out to me, well, they got a couple guys from Moorhead. There is
Kevin Feeney's connection there has led them to get a guy like a Jack Tyken, a Jamal Dixon, who we're going to see on the football field for UND in 2023. But that's how that has worked. If you go straight up in North Dakota, how often UND has beaten NDSU, it's not close. It's not. I've kept the records on that. It's not a close decision right now. So I thought those were a couple of interesting nuggets that you could see a true freshman playing on the back end of the Bison defense for 2023, and that the Bison are not done in the transfer portal. There's still a window open there to add for the roster. I think that would be intriguing to see where things go from there. So we appreciate his time coming on. And we mentioned the countdown now fully on, 100 days out from the season opener against Eastern Washington. Okay, we mentioned we got baseball coming up here in less than 90 minutes. North Dakota State at Omaha set to go. Bison are wrapping up their BP in anticipation of this game. They're going to send West Fargo's Tristan Roehrich on the mound today. Roehrich, an all-Summit League first-team pitcher this season. Mark of 5-6, an ERA of 4.10. Works 74 2/3 innings. We saw him on Friday night against South Dakota State. I had a chance to visit with him after that game about the anticipation of the Summit League tournament and about going up against one of his best friends, West Fargo's Ryan Barassa, who's the closer at South Dakota State. Here's our interview.
About you guys flipped, like he was a starter, now he's relieving, you went relieving, and now you're starting. Tell me about that transition that was gone for you this year.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool, for us to switch roles. I know that he really likes coming out of the pen. I've kind of always wanted to be a starter. I do kind of miss the adrenaline of coming in late, but it's fun to start the game off right.
Describe you know this because you lived it, how good West Fargo baseball has been, to see a couple guys in the majors. Now you and Ryan doing this in Division I baseball. How much pride do you have that coming from West Fargo, you guys are doing this?
Yeah, it's really cool to represent the program like that. The coaches in West Fargo have been an amazing job at developing players and pumping them out to be great college players. I know there's a lot of JUCO kids right now that are going to be D1 next year, so it'll be fun to watch how everyone ends up doing in their career.
Was there a sense of that 2017 team, like, holy cow, we're loaded here? I know you guys end up winning state, but was that an inherent sense on that team?
Yeah, it was pretty insane how much pitching we had. Like, even I barely pitched that year, and we had unbelievable guys. Our hitters were unbelievable, Faircloth and Borg and all those guys, so it was pretty insane.
What do you think next week will be like, now knowing full well you're going to go right up against the first game of the tournament, that you're going to be seeing him on the opposite dugout again?
Yeah, I hope we get a lead early and then hopefully don't have to see him. But we'll see how it goes. Should be an exciting game.
What was that like last night, seeing him pitch at Newman and how he pitched last night?
Yeah, he looked really good. I mean, it's tough to see against your own team, but yeah, he looked good, and hopefully next week we don't have to see him, and if we do, hopefully we can get to him.
If I'd have told you this 5-6 years ago, you'd be playing for your hometown team, was this beyond your wildest dreams? Was this what you thought could happen?
I mean, I hoped that I could get here, and ended up getting here after a year at junior college. So it's pretty cool to play at home and in front of friends and family every night.
Do you have some friends and family out next week? I talked with Brett the other night, or last night actually, he was watching the game. You think you're going to have a pretty good West Fargo turnout next week?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there'll be a lot of former West Fargo kids. I know me and Ryan have friends that'll be here, and then hopefully the current players will come out and watch too.
That was my next question, just about that, about connecting with the current team, of seeing not just Matt and Andy, what they're doing, but you guys as well, of what, hey, put work in, this can happen for you guys.
Yeah, I know my Legion coach, Jordan Rowe, had reached out to me, and he has me and Ryan talking to some of the kids that are there right now, and hopefully getting them to get a little more confidence and being able to get to where we are at.
The last question for you, tell me about now next week, how the team has been playing. On the outside, you see your record, how it started. I knew you guys played some heavy hitters.
Yeah.
To win 21 games after how things started, tell me about the confidence you have going into next week.
I mean, I think we're rolling right now. We've won however many series in a row, and now going into next week, I think we're confident. Hitters are swinging the bat, and pitchers are doing their thing. So hopefully everything evens out, and we can get it done next week.
And our thanks to Tristan Roehrich there for a few minutes. We visited with him after his start last Friday in the win over South Dakota State, and he's got to go out and know that he's got to throw strikes and go deep into this game, as we visited
last week about that, and his season stats bear that out. As we mentioned, he was first-team All-Summit League pitcher here in 2023. He pitched against Omaha in that series that was shortened because of rain. He started twice against the Mavericks this season. Back on March 25th at Omaha, went 6 innings, allowed 6 hits, 2 runs, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, and a Bison victory that day. He got the win. Then he pitched here May 14th, just a couple weeks ago, lost that game, went 6 innings, allowed 8 hits, 4 runs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts, and ended up taking the loss against Omaha. His pitching performance, you saw a couple highlights of that against South Dakota State on Friday. He worked 3 innings, allowed 1 hit, and struck out 6. He was electric. If they get that kind of start here today, the Bison are going to be in good shape. And to try to keep their season alive, they're going to have to do that as they match up with an Omaha team with Bovee leading off. It's the same lineup that Evan Porter's treading out there for the Mavericks. Looks like for the Bison, it is one change. Carson Hake will be in the lineup. He's going to be DHing today. That's the only change for the Bison for their starting 9 as opposed to what they had there last night against South Dakota State. We will take our final break. We'll come back. We'll get you ready for a busy Sports Thursday. We'll update you Tom Hoagie on the golf course at Colonial and get you ready for what we have on tap here at Newman Outdoor Field. Hot Mike wraps after this on WDAY Extra, KSFY TV, KSF Well TV, and Inform.com. We're back after this.
I'll bet joining Medicare probably isn't on your bucket list. Riding in a balloon, traveling the world, learning the tango, something more like that, right? But now that you need to choose a Medicare plan, even though it might not be exciting, it sure is important. That's why I chose Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Minnesota. Blue Cross is nonprofit, so instead of making shareholders wealthy, they focus on making you and me healthy. You should call or go online to get this free step-by-step guide to Medicare. It can help you understand your Medicare benefits and how Blue Cross gives you more value for your money. 96% of doctors and hospitals in Minnesota are in the Blue Cross network. So just about anywhere you go, you're covered. And just like me, almost half of Minnesota seniors have a Blue Cross Medicare plan. Maybe you're interested in a plan that combines medical and prescription coverage. Well, here's how Blue Cross has you covered there as well.
Blue Cross offers Medicare Advantage plans that include prescription drug coverage, $0 primary care doctor visits, and many other benefits. Some plans start at a $0 monthly plan premium. Plus, select plans include $0 copays on insulin and preferred generic medications. Blue Cross Medicare Advantage plans also provide extra perks at no extra cost. From dental, hearing, and vision benefits to Silver Sneakers fitness memberships and even benefits for over-the-counter medications. To learn more about why Blue Cross is the best choice, call or go online now for your free copy of this informative step-by-step guide to Medicare. There's absolutely no obligation.
Blue Cross has been offering Medicare plans since 1965, when Medicare first started. They're all about keeping folks like you and me healthy, so we can keep doing things we like, or tackle things from our bucket list.
Call or go online now. You and Blue, better together.
You got lots of money over here.
I want to go for it. So do I. Let's do it.
You bet your life.
Kev, give me the money. All righty. $5,000.
Boosting the economy.
You seriously asking me this question, Jay? Coney Island. What are we doing over here?
Every weekday.
Kev, give me that money. Oh, yeah. I'm going to give it to you like an Italian uncle. Here you go. You get yourself a little something there. There you go. Right there.
Weekdays at 3:30 p.m.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day we encounter people who are having the worst day of their entire lives. Does it get any easier? Nope.
It takes a certain kind of person to run towards danger rather than run away from it.
Why is this job so important to you?
Growing up, I never saw any heroes who looked like me.
And that's what a hero looks like.
Help is on the way.
Sundays at 8 p.m.
Federal investigators blame human error for a deadly natural gas explosion.
We all remember where we were that morning. We could actually see the smoke from our farm here, which is close to 20 miles away.
I started to pull
Right off the bat, both tractors just kind of started to spin out, and those are big tractors. So I knew something wasn't right. Out of nowhere, I just heard a big boom. The tile plow ruptured into the pipeline. Once the gas got through the intakes of the tractors is when it ignited. As soon as I heard that boom, I started running as fast as I could. The ground literally started erupting from my feet.
They were highly respected and they were good at what they did. And it was one of those accidents that, when it was done, made people step back and pause. If an accident can happen to them, it can happen to anyone.
Watch the rest of the story at 3secondslater.org. And remember, Farm Safe starts by contacting 811.
Wrapping up our show on this Thursday morning. North Dakota State BP wrap it up as the Bison get set to take on Omaha. As you look at our Summer League Baseball bracket that's coming up in about 65 minutes here on WDAY Extra. Then we're back with you tonight at 6 o'clock for Oral Roberts and South Dakota State. The winner of that game gets the automatic berth into the Summer League Tournament Championship game, and they would have to lose twice to not win it. The Bison know they're going to have to go the long road to get to that Summer League Tournament Championship game. I mean, they have to win today. They'd have to win tomorrow and then win 2 games on Saturday to win the automatic berth. That is a lot of baseball, and that's what happens when you lose on that opening day. Omaha's in the same boat, and we'll see what happens there. A couple of updates here. Tom Hoagie on the golf course, we mentioned, got off to a hot start. He's cooled off since then, still 2 under par as he's completed the back 9, which is his front 9 at the Colonial, the Charles Schwab Challenge, and we'll update that, highlights of that. He's on featured coverage on ESPN Plus today, so for you golf nerds out there, if you want to watch Hoagie play, you can do that, and we'll update you on his progress coming up on our news tonight at 6 and at 10. Also, for you Twins fans out there, I know Dick Bramer normally joins us on Wednesday. He has moved graciously his schedule. He will join us tomorrow in anticipation of the Twins series with Toronto, and it looks like Carlos Correa will not be part of the festivities. Correa has been diagnosed with a muscle strain and plantar fasciitis in his left foot. That's not good. Plantar fasciitis is normally for a football injury you're out for a while. And granted, as we sit here on May 25th, we are, again, 6 days out from when Royce Lewis can be activated. We may see him immediately back with the Minnesota Twins. So disappointing news there. Correa's been scuffling all year. And that 6-year, $200 million contract is you keep shaking your head. You were waiting for some results, and now he's hurt. So we'll hopefully have an update on that coming up tonight. And, of course, we'll have Dick Bramer's reaction to that. He'll join us tomorrow at 10 on Hot Mic. Let's get you ready for what to watch before we get out of here on this busy Thursday. Great sporting day. We mentioned there's a ton of stuff going on. If you're a big fan of college baseball or Major League Baseball, that is. The Twins are off today. Bison in action, as we mentioned, coming up against Omaha. That's at noon here on WDAY Extra, followed by South Dakota State and Oral Roberts. That game at 6 o'clock on Extra. So our crew that put in a long day yesterday, another long one coming for them today. We're excited. At least we got a great day for baseball and a nice day to be outside. Game 4, Western Conference Finals tonight. Golden Knights and the Stars, 7 o'clock on ESPN. Las Vegas is going for the sweep. If they win tonight, they'll sweep out the Stars and advance to their second Stanley Cup final since 2018. Let me say that again. Their second Stanley Cup final since 2018. The Minnesota Wild have been a franchise for 23 years. They have never been. The Golden Knights could be there for the second time in 5 years. And think about this. If Seattle had won Game 7, we'd have had 2 expansion teams playing in the Western Conference Finals. That probably grinds your gears to no one else's degree. But we could have a Vegas-Miami Stanley Cup final. That will be on TNT. Tonight's game on ESPN. Speaking of Miami, the Heat play the Celtics tonight in Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Finals in basketball. Of course, the Celtics avoided the sweep on Tuesday with the inspired performance. Can they do it at home tonight? If they do, they'll force a Game 6, which will be back in Miami. That's at 7:30 tonight on TNT. We got to roll. Thanks to our guests today, to Bryan Miller, to Matt Entz, and Tristan Roehrich. If you missed any of our show, you can podcast it later today at Inforum.com. Thanks to our great crew for getting everything set up 2 hours earlier than normal to have us do the show up here the last 2 days, and to the Summit League for helping us out as well. Enjoy the baseball today, everybody. We'll see you back here in an hour for NDSU in Omaha, and back in studio tomorrow on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra. We'll see you then.
This is one of the best decisions I've ever made because it changed my life.
The PA in the clinic was like, dude, no wonder, like it all makes sense why you feel the way you do, and we're gonna get it fixed. One of the best decisions I ever made was going and seeing these guys at Limitless.
Get 11% off everything now at Menards. Keep your home's exterior protected with our great selection of exterior siding. Each piece of double 4-inch siding covers more than 8 square feet. Cedar Creek vinyl siding panels are $4.99 each after rebate. No dig, multi-purpose fence panels are easy to install. Just lay out your panels and hammer the posts into the ground, and your fence is complete. No dig fence panels are $10.99 each after 11% rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
Together we are powerful. I really believe that in my spirit and in my heart.
We've been working on this since the ancient times.
Then you should be all right.
Oh, you're crying! I'm underneath a microscope all the time. You deserve to be loved and respected.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. A spot in the NCAA tournament is on the line. Watch the 2023 Summit League Baseball Championship live from Fargo, May 24th through the 27th. See the top 4 teams battle for the Summit League title only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus. 2 games start at noon and 6 p.m., both Wednesday and Thursday. 1 game at 4 on Friday. Then the championship coverage begins Saturday at 1. Watch the 2023 Summit League Baseball Championship only on WDAY Extra and WDAY Sports Plus.
Thanks to Limitless Mail, I'm a new man. I have more energy. Brain fog, gone. I'm sleeping. And look, muscles. Bedroom performance, how you doing? Schedule your free consult at limitlessmail.com.
Happy Thursday. I look outside, just looking at the sky. We're just going to start the show off by look at the blue. Finally, we're seeing some blue skies. The smoke has pushed away. We'll talk about what caused the smoke to push away, and I'm sure you've felt it the past couple of days, but that wind, it's not going anywhere. It is going to continue to warm temperatures up as we go throughout the weekend, and then following the warm and windy weekend, we're tracking storm chances in the 10-day forecast. It's all coming up on WDAY News at 11. That starts right now.